No, I got it. Oh my gosh, it hasn't even been that long now. I already can't remember how to start this off. It's Welcome to Deadhouse. It's not Coats and Jackets.
You can try that, but you're not going to be happy.
I mean, I'd ask you if you were ready, but we already know I'm not. So let's get started.
Take 2.
Hi everyone, welcome to Deadhouse. And today, for Halloween night, we're doing Goosebumps, Horrorland, Monster Blood for Breakfast.
Ooh.
This is book number 3 in the Horrorland series, and the first printing was June 2008. It does have 2 stories, we did confirm. So we didn't read the last part because that's going to get into the full set of Horrorland.
Right, so...
At some point, depending on how this book club goes, we may or may not just read the end-part Horrorland story. We'll see what happens. But for now, this is the only Horrorland book we're looking at.
Yeah.
It follows our main character, Matt Daniels, his sister, and his neighbor, who is Bradley Wormsley, who he calls Worm.
Yeah.
And our main character at first seems like he's maybe not that nice and like he's a bit hard on the different neighbor kid. But then we get to know the different neighbor kid, and this guy's really annoying.
He's the Urkel of this neighborhood, I think. And anybody who doesn't know that reference, you need to get on YouTube and look up Family Matters, because you won't be disappointed. Matt likes inventing things. He's very much a science kid. And Bradley...
He's also athletic. He's on the swim team. Yep.
And Bradley is the skinny neighborhood kid, comes over, eats all of his food, causes chaos, blames him for everything, and then leaves.
Yeah.
Yep. Sleeps in like a hurricane and then leaves a disaster.
He loves to play practical jokes. He doesn't like to do too much work.
No.
He will find ways around it or take the easy way out if he can.
Yeah.
And he loves to just cause trouble in general. Not be a bully, but just cause trouble.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a huge problem throughout the book. And I like the build. I like that at first you question whether or not you like the main character.
Yeah.
Because it initially seems like, oh, he's too hard on this kid. And you kind of see this trait where the main character is a bit full of himself. And he's like convinced it's because he wants to be like him. Which is not exactly true, but it's also not true by the end of it.
Yeah.
We'll get into that as it goes on. Because it's not so much that he wants to surpass his friend, basically, I guess is the idea.
He wants to be involved in the same things. He wants to be looked upon in a similar way, I think.
Because he does do very well in classes, and he's also very athletic and does well in the swim team. And he wants to also do well without putting in the work, is the problem.
I'm not sure if Bradley does well in class, because as the story starts...
Bradley doesn't, Matt does.
Matt does.
Matt does well.
Okay, so Bradley kind of wants to be in the same group
Bradley wants to be in the same group, but without doing the work.
Right, yeah. So we start off with Bradley getting Matt into trouble. That's one of the main beginner instances after he's, scammed breakfast from this kid's house. Yeah,
with the waiter, there's a fly in my soup gag.
Yeah.
And then he also uses his computer and...
Well, that's a little bit afterwards.
Yeah, but he's always using his computer. And he's bought this can of stink that he opens up as a practical joke.
Yeah.
And he stinks everybody out over breakfast, which is disgusting.
Yeah.
And it made them all, initially sick because it was so potent.
Oh, well, Livy, is it? Livy?
Yeah, I think Livy is the sister.
She threw up. I don't blame her.
Yeah.
That sounded
Matt almost threw up. Bad. He gagged. Bradley ran outside and gagged. Everybody had trouble with this can of stink.
Banned from the house. Gone.
And the first incident where they do get in trouble is on their way to school.
Yeah. So Bradley gets this rock that's supposed to be a piece of Venus that he bought online, and he was so proud.
Always online shopping.
Yeah. Where does this kid get credit cards to buy things online? Because not a lot of websites can.
I'm assuming he just takes it from Smuggler's Wallet. Let's be real.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, Matt has a look at this rock from Venus and sees the tag underneath it of where it's made. And it's not on Venus. Bradley got scammed, and he got scammed bad, man.
Yeah, it's like a trinket that's like made in China.
Yeah, yeah. So it gets thrown, and it hits off the stop sign, ricochets, and takes out the windshield of their teacher.
Yes. And it's their science teacher who usually gets along really well with Matt. And Bradley instantly, when he sees the teacher get out of the car being mad, well, first he says, "Oh my God, Bradley, what?" Or no, "Oh my God, Matt, why'd you do that?" And then grabs his younger sister and runs. So Matt's left to get in trouble.
It's not Bradley's younger sister, grabs.
Yeah, he grabs Matt's younger sister and takes off.
Yeah. See, that paints a picture.
It does.
That puts a target on Bradley.
Well, on Matt. We're getting the two confused constantly.
Well, I'm saying it puts a target on Bradley because now I don't like Bradley because he's a little shit disturber. But the target in the novel, the scorn of Matt. Yeah, the science teacher is on Matt. So yeah, two different targets. The second biggest thing that happens is Bradley is caught cheating off of Matt's science exam or test by the same teacher, and Matt gets in trouble. Before
the swim meet too, which is a big deal because he could get suspended.
Yeah.
So he's now extra pissed with Bradley, as you would be.
Kids toast, man.
And what I really like about this though is that Matt's already in a lot of trouble and detention for the first thing.
Yeah.
And he has to, help pay for the windshield and whatever. But it's nice to see that there's consequences. And then when the cheating happens and that's a second strike, there's more consequences for it, and the teacher becomes more disappointed in him. Like he was almost willing to let the first thing go as an accident and just sort of, "Oh, well, you can make it up to me." But after the cheating, he's like, "No, we have to have detention and stuff now. I'm not going to forgive this anymore because you're starting to be or cause trouble." And you don't normally. And he does actually sort of talk to Matt about it a bit and be like, is there something going on? You're not usually a troublemaker.
I think if Bradley's history and previous actions were taken into consideration at all during any of this, it should have been clear cut of maybe somebody, Matt, is being framed. If Bradley's cheating off of Matt's test, wouldn't Matt be further ahead than Bradley is? Wouldn't, it can't be as simple as saying...
Well, he takes the tests from them as soon as he sees the cheating, and it's like you both get instant zeros.
But couldn't they
because they were talking, right?
Yeah, because Matt was trying to get him to go away.
Right, but still, there's no clear-cut way to say at that point he wasn't letting him do it, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Bradley's necessarily cheated or been caught cheating on tests before. But I know he's done a lot of pranks, and he's sort of known as a bit of a prankster and sort of a troublemaker. So, yeah, I do think maybe Bradley should have been taken into more consideration there. But at the same time, it does seem plausible that, Matt's maybe falling under pressure for this big swim meet.
Maybe, yeah. Bradley continues to get on Matt's bad side by going home, to Matt's home, going up to Matt's bedroom and taking one of Matt's favorite t-shirts that his dad gave him, and gets on Matt's laptop without permission to order more things online.
Yes.
This is a question that I have. If Bradley was using his parents' credit card on his own computer, we're assuming, you'd have to have that with him.
Or he has the number memorized.
He isn't that bright, though.
Well...
Yeah. But he gets this monster blood. He orders this Monster Blood off of a sketchy website that needed 3 passwords to access. And instead of closing down the program and walking out like nothing happened, he left the screen up on the laptop, and it was this red-eyed creature, and it was saying, "Enjoy your monster blood," over and over and over again.
And Matt noticed that he'd gone up to his room without his permission.
Yeah.
And used his laptop, but also that he was wearing the shirt, and got so mad at him about the shirt and kicked him out. That was only after he realized, because it was talking and doing stuff, that like, you know, oh, crap, there's something on my computer, and he couldn't shut it down.
Like, that could have been violence.
And I like this because this is the introduction of technology into this world. Because so far with Goosebumps, it was so far back in the 90s, there was no cell phones, no laptops, no computers, no nothing.
No.
Now, there's a laptop, and there's actually there's something weird on the screen, and you busted it, and you gave it a virus, and even after I unplugged it and took out the battery, I couldn't get the screen to turn off.
Or the voice to stop. Yeah. It was...
I mean, I would have wondered about that a bit.
Yeah, but it was straight up horror movie.
It was.
Yeah. Matt doesn't know exactly what Monster Blood is, he just knows something really creepy is happening with his laptop, and he wants it to stop.
And he's worried because of that he's not going to be able to finish his science fair project.
Ooh, that's another thing.
So now we get into the science fair.
Matt had a really cool idea.
He had a super cool idea. And given Bradley's history, you would think Bradley would not be able to come up with such an idea. Bradley's clever enough to know that. So Bradley takes Matt's idea, goes to the teacher, and says, "Hey, this is my science fair proposal that Matt helped me out with." And then the science fair teacher goes to Matt and says, "Oh, maybe I've misjudged things. It was so good of you to actually help him out and help him do this experiment and project and, you know, give him one of your other science fair projects. And if this is one you've given him, I can't wait to see what you're doing."
See, that's too much.
That one's a little over the line.
Yeah, I think there would be a very loud conversation between 2 kids happening right now that adults would have to stop into.
He does try to fight him about it.
He does, but he doesn't get too far because that's when that science teacher, once again, catches him.
I mean, it could have been any teacher. I'm a little annoyed that it was the same teacher again, because either way it would have been a 3rd strike.
Yeah, because Bradley got him out of trouble.
Oh, right. Bradley comes up with this clever thing and says that
they're
only joking.
Yeah. So, like...
Clever thing.
Yeah, Matt almost lost.
Yes.
His place at the championship. He almost got suspended. Like, that's when it gets real. Like, Matt is going
and supposedly these people are friends, even if they're forced into being friends. And the reason he's over there so much is because he's their neighbor, and his mom's not really around the same way. Now, both of their mothers run a company together, so they take turns basically looking after each other's kids is the idea.
Yeah.
And we get the idea that Matt's mother does more of the home stuff and the baking and all that kind of stuff for their company. And Bradley's mother does more of the, like, you know, going out around sort of promotion stuff. But either way, this gives you a little bit of empathy, at least, towards Bradley, because we really hate him at this point.
Oh, yeah. We're over Bradley. He needs to, like...
At least he realized what was happening and tried to get Matt out of trouble, and succeeded. So you do, like, you still don't like him, but you're like, alright, I'll feel something for you.
Yeah. Because the day can always get worse.
Right. And how does that happen?
That night, 2 men showed up at Matt's house.
Yeah, on his way home from school. They're, like, following him, and he gets weirded out and sees the teacher, and is like, because the teacher was coming by about the windshield.
And the 2 men want what he has supposedly bought because they tracked the IP address in the package, and they
Which was clever.
It was. That's technology. They found out where it was delivered. Now, they don't really elaborate on what it is, but because of the laptop going a little bit wacky,
You're convinced this is Monster Blood.
Yeah, at this point.
And also, the way they just kind of follow him and disappear as soon as somebody shows up.
It's very Men in Black.
And then, and then come back later, and they're all in these, like, trench coats, and one of them is tattooed and has a spider tattoo.
Yeah. Bradley did have an intention with the monster blood. He bought it and he researched it because he wanted something from it.
Yes. He found out that the monster blood will make you grow if you eat it.
Mm-hmm.
Or supposedly that's the rumor.
Mm-hmm.
So he thought if he ate a little bit of it, then he would get to be bigger and stronger, because his issue is that he's very tall, but he's very lanky. He wants to be strong and athletic,
Mm-hmm.
so that he can do better in athletics than Matt.
Instead of actually putting in the work to become that.
Which is like the science fair, which is like the cheating on the test. So we're seeing this theme repeated.
Yeah, easy way out for Bradley. Sign him up. He'll take 2.
They fight over it.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt says, listen, these guys came to me. They said it's super dangerous. You're already getting me in trouble with this monster blood stuff because they want to bag you. You cannot have this.
Yeah.
So he keeps it from him.
Mm-hmm.
And Bradley gets super upset about it.
And then there's a bait and switch.
There is a bait and switch.
Yeah. So
what happens is the next morning over breakfast,
Bradley shows up.
like usual.
Yep.
And he is pulling pranks like usual.
Mm-hmm.
And his younger sister is so mad about the gas can from the other day that she steals some of this monster blood because she's been talking to Matt about like the computer, and she overhears their conversation.
She actually took it from Matt's bedroom.
Yes, and she steals a little tiny dab of it
Mm.
and puts it in his bowl of cereal.
And then Bradley switches the cereals with Matt.
Because he saw his sister drop something in there. So he switched it and didn't say anything.
No, and Matt ate the monster blood.
And now it's the day of the swim meet, of course. And he's like, maybe nothing will happen. And he's like trying to play it cool. And some had gotten in his plant when they were fighting. We forgot to mention that.
Did
and
that come out of the
overnight,
closet? Like when it burst out of the closet?
when it burst out, and it got in the plant.
Yeah.
And this happened, of course, before Matt started to grow. The plant grew and grew ginormous.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it had gotten extra water in it. So we're bringing back the water element from the other one, but in a different way.
Right.
A totally different way. In that the water is what increases the growth rate and makes it grow extra large. So his plant is now growing. And he's worried about it. And he's now afraid he's going to grow because he's eaten it.
And he does start to grow a little bit on the way to school. Yeah. He notices his clothes feeling tighter and shorter.
And I like this because this was our complaint with one of the other Monster Blood books.
Yes.
It actually addresses that his clothes get too small for him.
And that's how he knows he's growing.
Yes, and because his clothes are tight, he's like, well, okay, I'm only wearing a Speedo because it's a swim thing. He's like, so I'll put on my Speedo, I'll do the swimming, and it'll be fine. But as he gets in the water, because he doesn't know it's water that's the trigger yet, he starts growing even faster.
And there's only so much stretch in a Speedo when you're growing to like 6-7 feet tall.
So by the time it's done, he's 8 feet tall. He's obviously won the swim meet.
Yeah.
Nobody's noticed that he's gotten gigantic because he's trying to hide himself in the deep end and
you should be able to
make it seem like
see him though.
And the fact that his arms can like almost do the length of the pool all of a sudden.
Yeah, but if there's like 3 or 4 kids along the line of the deep end and one of them is 8 feet tall.
Crouching.
Yeah.
You'd notice.
You would notice. I laughed at that.
I laughed at the fact that nobody noticed how big he was getting while he was swimming, but they saw him getting faster. I don't know. It was really weird. It was not the greatest, but it was enough you could, like, let it go.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny.
He thought he could hide in water that you can see through.
Yeah. And then after he gets out of the water, he waits for everybody else to leave first.
Yeah.
And after he gets out of the water, thankfully nobody's around, the Speedo busts. So finally he's naked.
And none of his other clothes that's in his locker fits.
Well, no, of course not, because they were pre-Monster Blood.
Yeah. And pre-water.
Yeah.
Like the pool water.
So now
like,
he's
limit.
8 foot and can't fit into any of the clothes. So he ties a couple of towels together around his waist and runs home.
Breezy, I bet. I bet you got there in double time though. His
Yeah,
legs being so long
So
and 8 feet tall.
when he gets there, he's really panicking now.
Mm-hmm. Like you would.
And he's trying to figure out what to do about it. And he's like, those men must know.
Mm-hmm.
And he happens to, Bradley comes over and gets shocked and is afraid of him at first. And he has to explain it's him. And he chases Bradley back to his house to see if there's anything on the can.
Yeah.
Because Bradley has the can again now. He stole it back. And he wants to see if there's anything on the can that can, like, you know, let him know how to reverse the effects. And when they show up, they find, and I literally have the MIB written in my notes. So we were both thinking Men in Black.
We belong to that fandom. We're proud members of that fandom.
That cheesy, terrible, wonderful fandom. They're waiting for him.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out, and this is one of my favorite fake outs,
It's not the monster blood they're after.
it was the can of stink.
Ah, snap.
You know, the can of stink. Gas attack, a party favorite. As it says on the can.
Why? Why do people think that's a party favorite?
Anyway.
Yeah.
The point is, it was way more potent than it was supposed to be. And these men don't know what's going on with Matt at all.
No.
They just want to be able to refund him or otherwise compensate him for any damages.
Liability.
And to make sure, and to make sure that he's not, like, ill from it.
Mm.
And once he said, well, we got a bit sick at first, but we're fine and there's no lasting effects, they're like, oh, okay, cool, well, we'll comp you for this and see you later.
To an 8 foot tall kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess they don't know he's a kid at this point.
Well,
Because they realized they had the wrong house and that it was next door because it was from Matt's IP address, but it shipped to Bradley's.
Yeah.
So they went to Bradley's house next door, and I mean, Bradley did come in.
Yeah.
So I guess the 8 foot tall person in towels. And he's like, hey guys, I'm growing and I'm not sure what's going on. And they're like, we can help you with your puberty issues, sir, but now that we've taken care of this, gas attack.
But one thing I don't understand though is because Bradley didn't know who he was at first, but like they lived next door, they were friends. Like your features are not going to change that much.
I know, especially not once you're 8 foot. But
Yeah.
I think that's why he got over it pretty quickly. He was more so, I think, shocked.
Like,
At first, he
rounding
was
the
like,
corner,
who's
like,
this
"Ooh."
man?
Yeah.
And didn't really pay attention. But once he started talking to him, he realized it was
Matt.
Matt. I mean, this all happens fairly fast, but it is really well written.
Mhm.
And, like, they spend a lot of time developing these characters and the ins and outs of the relationship between Matt and Bradley. So, I mean, you know, if you haven't read it and you're just listening to us talk about it,
It's a good book to read.
really do read it. It's a
Yeah.
very good read.
I like the details about the science fair project of what he was doing with the birdhouse.
Yeah.
That was very
That
smart.
was really smart, yeah.
He has his plant in the room that he takes care of, so it shows responsibility on Matt's behalf. There's also some issues dealing with Bradley. It shows ideal body image issues on the male side opposed to the stereotypical women's side of things, as well as the need to belong and be included in...
Yeah, and the pressure to perform.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
thought that the themes in the novel were really good.
They were really good, and they were really well handled.
Yeah.
So back to the science fair.
Yes.
Matt decides, well, I have this giant growing plant.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can bring that, but he's also giant. So they have a better look at the can,
Mm-hmm.
and it turns out it's temporary. It was only a sample of monster blood that was sent. So it only lasts for a certain number of hours.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, he's like, oh cool, there's only so many hours left. This will be gone by tonight.
Yeah.
And it does reverse.
Mhm.
And he is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But his plant, he figures, well, my plant's been, you know, about the same time as me, maybe a little longer. So he expected the next morning his plant to be back to normal, but it wasn't.
No.
So he's like, well, we're getting close to the science fair. I'm going to submit this plant project. about, like, you know, giving it extra fertilizer and how this has happened to grow larger. And he speculates maybe it was never tested on plants and so it behaves with them differently.
Yeah, because of genetic makeup.
Yeah, and also how you constantly water plants, so maybe that increased the growth. Whereas, like, you know, Matt got out of a pool, but you're always watering a plant for sustenance, so maybe the water affected it somehow.
Maybe.
Bradley decides that, well, he likes that idea better. Matt is able to steal his idea back and use his original birdhouse idea, because Bradley doesn't know how to make it, so he's got nothing made in time for the science fair.
He's got nothing. And
Matt's like, I've gotten it already made, so I'm going to go ahead and take it and use it and do it. And then whatever, leave Bradley to roast, they'll know he faked it. And Bradley shows up midway through the science fair with Matt's plant.
Was she also a thief from the bedroom?
Yeah, and he's like, this is my project, and he comes in with this giant plant. And at first Matt's upset because his science teacher is suddenly very impressed by this, like,
huge plant that's
I don't know
not
how
even
it got
Bradley's.
in the door, because it has to be, what, like 12 feet long or something at this point?
Huge,
like, it's
huge.
Ginormous.
Yeah.
I don't know how he got out of the house. Like, it should have been stuck in the room by all accounts with how big it had gotten, because it was like canopying over his bed.
Yeah, Bradley would not have been able
There's
to handle
no way that would have come out of the house. But either way,
Here
he's
it is.
carrying it, and here it is. And isn't it amazing? And Matt notices that the plant is starting to move. So as the teachers are judging the stuff, and they're congratulating, you know, Bradley for first place, Matt's like, well, I came in second. But you know what? He sees the plant still moving. And he's like, something's going on with this plant. It's inching towards Bradley more.
Sit back and watch.
And he was like, so he goes up to Bradley and shakes his hand and congratulates him on getting what he deserves. And I love that ending. I love that ending so much, because not only does Bradley, like, get his comeuppance, but Matt never really had to do anything.
No.
He didn't really trick him.
He sat back like karma play out.
And usually, though, in Goosebumps, the main thing that happens is your character wants to try to help. So even if it's something that's not his fault, or it probably shouldn't, because he's the hero, he wants to still, like, help out and make it better and say, oh, watch out, or so you expect when he comes forward he's going to say, the plant's alive, or it's whatever. But he doesn't. He just lets it go and doesn't tell Bradley, so that Bradley will get consumed by the plant. And I absolutely love it. Like, that's ruthless.
That is good, though. Try
That
learning
is
that.
absolutely ruthless.
Yep.
And it's not really, it's kind of a Goosebumps cliffhanger, but it's not the typical Goosebumps cliffhanger.
Yeah, because you know something's going to happen, and it might be scary, it might be hilarious, depending on whose viewpoint you're taking. But it isn't like a dun dun dun, there's going to be a sequel. It's just kind of a nice little wrap up.
Yeah, it's not the cliffhanger that's like, oh, there's a sequel. It's, like you said, it's a wrap up cliffhanger. It's very much a, here's how this is going to end. You can see where this is going.
Yep.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was a really good read.
I
really
enjoyed
solid.
this one.
Yeah,
I
and
really did.
like you said, the themes were really good. Like, they were really good.
Yep, so it's like additional to the ones I mentioned previously. You mentioned the consequences, and
And there actually being consequences.
Yeah.
And, like, adults being actually involved in their
Normal.
kids' lives.
Yeah.
And, like, Matt gets a lecture from his mom at one point for, like, oh, you shouldn't be so hard on Bradley. He just looks up to you. Which is sort of the truth.
These are real things that kids deal with. So I liked it.
Yeah, it was really, really well done. It was a lot of fun. I was able to believe the monster blood was its own thing because it came mysteriously from a website. We don't know what had happened to it in the meantime or how it had been altered. It didn't suffer from, like, trying to connect it to the other story too much. It linked back just enough to be okay, but not so much that you expected it to be the same thing as the first book.
Yeah. Which is good. It's a standalone.
Yeah. So that was that was Monster Blood for breakfast.
Yep.
And now that we've done with the full book overall, is there anything you want to ask the audience?
We want to ask if you thought that this was a good representation of what kids have to deal with at this age in school, dealing with puberty and kids growing at different rates and always comparing intellectual abilities like
how well you do, like both, well, physically and mentally, like schoolwork and the swim team and all that stuff. Because there was a lot of pressure put on Matt, but Matt enjoyed the pressure. Whereas Bradley was always comparing himself to Matt, and he didn't enjoy that kind of pressure. Now, it was self-inflicted, but at the same time, like, that's real things that you go through.
Being a kid that liked doing science fair projects, I did tie for a place in, I think it was second place, way back. So, like, the competition is real.
Yeah,
like having to do something and being compared to others is...
compare yourself to like other people's work and to want to be better. And I mean, I was never athletic, so it was always where I struggled. So that was probably where I compared myself to other people the most, because I wanted to do better.
Well, I wasn't even interested that much in a lot of athletic activities. Like a lot of my friends, they played softball.
I was on a volleyball team for a while.
Yeah, I like badminton for a
I did too.
short
I like
while.
badminton.
Yeah. But anything else, like, I could care less about. But it is real. Like, people, like, you get compared and you have to compete to get on teams. And even though people want to be on these teams or, like, do well on projects or assignments, that's not always the outcome, because everybody is different. Everybody learns at different rates. Everybody grows at different rates. And I found, out of all the books that we read so far, the Goosebumps series, that this book...
It hits home the most for that sort of message, especially, like, with those ideas of, like, comparison and puberty and growing and... Yeah.
So we're asking what you guys think. Do you guys think that this is accurate?
Yeah. Did it reflect things that you went through growing up? Because I know it did for us.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things I wanted to mention before we wrapped up on this.
Okay.
One was, it's kind of terrible for me to assume he just takes his mother's credit card. There's nothing to suggest that. And like, that really, that's not a good thing to assume about this character. That being said, they go out of their way to talk about how much this character takes things. There's a scene that serves no other function except to do that in the story. It's when Matt goes to visit Bradley at his house, and I forget what the exact reason was for, but he finds Bradley quickly stuffing these cupcakes into his mouth when he goes. And then when he goes back home and he's talking to his mom after seeing Bradley, his mom tells him all about how, you know, they spent all day making all these cupcakes to fill his order. That kind of mentions, I think I saw Bradley eating some cupcakes, and she's like, well, I hope not, because we really need these.
Because he told him that he would have shared with them, but they're all gone. And then he continued to stuff his face with cupcakes.
Yeah, as he was leaving, he could see him stuff more in his mouth.
Yeah.
And the only point of that scene, the only point, is to show that Bradley has disregard for his mother's business and what she's doing, and that he takes things.
And I think that's us putting adult assumptions into the situation, because we know that to get things online, you need to purchase. You need to exchange money for goods.
Exactly. So, and it's entirely plausible this kid could have had his own PayPal or whatever. They're of the right age. Like, they could have had their own bank accounts. He could have had his own PayPal. He could have been doing this with his own money that he got from, like, I don't know, a paper route or something, whatever.
Yeah, but it doesn't explain to any of the readers of how he gets the money to buy these outlandish things that are really just scams.
Yeah, online. Yeah. And I just made that assumption, which again was a bad assumption to make, but really, like, he is a pretty inconsiderate character.
He is, for sure.
The other thing was that, okay, so when they're describing the monster blood first, when it shows up, right?
Okay.
It comes in this egg-shaped container.
Oh, my mind went one place.
Silly putty.
Yep.
Like, it is literally silly putty. The way they describe it is silly putty. But then later on, But then later on in the book, closer to the end, when R.L. Stine is, as the narrator, omniscient narrator, is describing the situation, he explains it and uses Silly Putty by name, which is so strange. That's a branding. Because that's a brand name. That's not what the product is.
No.
Because there was also Nutty Putty that came in like a nut-shaped case.
Yep. But this was
Silly Putty came in the egg. And it's a specific brand name. And it was, like, at first I was thinking, oh, he's describing Silly Putty, but, you know, they won't say it because it's a brand. But then later he actually says Silly Putty. And, like, it just floored me. That's all. It was like a blast from the past. And it's like, oh my god, he admits it's Silly Putty. Oh my god, how can he use a brand in something?
And he did put the statement afterward, not a sponsor.
Or like, TM for registered trademark.
Yeah. Oh, I totally thought about that. Which is interesting because, you know, if the putty wasn't actually monster blood, it could have just been Silly Putty in a container.
It could have.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it was, and that was cool to see because that was like an update. I mean, this was like an early 2000s book, but still. Mm-hmm. I mean, that would have been a throwback at the time. It was written even, especially now.
Yeah.
But that was just cool to see, and it was neat. It was even neater to see it mentioned, like, specifically by name later on in the book, and be like, "Oh my god, I knew it! I knew it was Silly Putty."
And everybody loves Silly Putty.
Or Nutty Putty. I mean, interchangeable.
A question that I have for this one is: we have two very annoying kids in the Monster Blood series. We have Kermit. Mm-hmm. And we have
Bradley Wormsley in this one.
Yeah. Which do you think of the two is the most annoying little kid that intervenes?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to say it's Kermit. Only because Kermit annoys me in a different way than Bradley. Mm-hmm. Kermit annoys me because he doesn't feel like a real character. He feels very much like an inserted thing just to drive you nuts.
He is the chaos factor.
Whereas Bradley is a very believable, annoying character in a way that's frustrating. Mm-hmm. Because we've all met that person who, and this I like about the character, is he's not a bully.
No.
He's not necessarily a bad person or anything. No. But he is a very intolerable, unlikable, inconsiderate child. And almost everybody has been thrown into a situation as a kid where they've had to go along to get along, where because they're close friends with their parents or mm-hmm. whatever, in this case the two parents have a business together. Yeah. You're forced to spend time with this kid that you really don't like mm-hmm. for very legitimate reasons. And again, it's not that you necessarily think they're a bad person or anything. You just really don't like them and you don't get along. Yeah. And he's very frustrating and grates on you in that way mm-hmm. because that's a sort of like familiar feeling.
Absolutely.
So they're two totally, I think, different types of annoying.
Mm-hmm. But I'm with you though. I think Kermit was the worst. The worst of the worst.
Because Kermit was unbelievably annoying. Like, he was annoying to a point where he felt like an annoying insert by a writer more mm-hmm. so than a real character, which is particularly bothersome.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm in agreement with that. Bradley was more like the younger sibling that tags along, that wants to be included, but also kind of idolizes by like stealing the t-shirt because he wants to be just like Matt.
Yeah, but he does it in a really annoying way.
Kermit has his own dreams. He has his own aspirations.
Kermit was mean, too. Bradley did bad things, but he wasn't necessarily mean. He even tried to get Matt out of trouble from when he realized that he had stepped over the line. Yep. But yeah, Kermit was mean. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's what set him apart. What do you guys think?
Yeah, we'd love to know. Who did you find more annoying and for what reasons? Kermit or Bradley? So now we get ready for next week.
Yes.
Or, well, I should say next couple of weeks.
Yes.
So on the 15th, we are doing what's one of my personal favorites, or it was growing up, I hope it still is, Say Cheese and Die.
We're really hoping we don't ruin this for Mandy. Sometimes when we revisit childhood favorites with an adult mind, they kind of fall short.
Although I have to say, the first 3 books were good.
Yes. Yeah.
With Monster Blood being the best of the first 3 we read.
Yes.
I feel like Monster Blood for Breakfast is a good return to that kind of like world building and storytelling and just like character development that we've been missing for a while.
If all the Monster Blood series
had been like this,
oh, I would have been on.
Yeah.
Full board. It would have been really good.
It was very well done.
Yeah. So I'm really scared that that's going to happen for my favorite, but looking forward to reading.
Say Cheese and Die. I read this one a lot as a kid, but I literally haven't read it in like more than 10 years. So I'm so excited to actually read it and see what I remember. I'm sure I'll remember most of it.
And I'm not sure if I read this one, but I'm sure that when I start reading it, I'll pick up on things. If I did actually read it as a child, it's not one that I remember owning or my cousin owning and me taking.
I think I have a special fondness for this one because it was also the first one I read in the series, and that was what got me into reading Goosebumps. So then, do you want to read the back?
I can read the back, yes. Every picture tells a story. Greg thinks there is something wrong with the camera he and his friends found. The photographs keep turning out wrong. Very wrong. Like the Snapchat Greg took of his father's new car, it shows that it's total.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Snapchat? What era are we living in? Snapshot.
Snapchat, oh my god! Yeah, we're in that era. I read Snap, SH, and I'm like, Snapchat. So the car is totaled, and then Greg's father is in a nasty wreck. So it predicted.
Yeah.
Alright, but Greg's friends don't believe him. Sherry even makes Greg bring the camera to her birthday party and take a picture. Why would you do that?
I mean, you're not going to believe it right away, right? You're going to be like, oh, come on, prove it to me that it works.
Yeah. Only Sherry's not in the photograph when it develops. Is Sherry about to be taken out of the picture permanently? Who is going to take the next fall for the evil camera?
I'm really excited. I'm so pumped for this. So this is what we're going to be reading on November 15th.
Mm-hmm.
So tune in for then. Where can we find you online?
Ooh, right. Coffee_with_Jen with 1 N.
And I'm a Glitter Macaroon on Twitter with 1 T and 2 O's. And when you're on Twitter, remember to hashtag all of your book reviews and comments for the book club with GBC Ghost Next Door.
Yes, we check that hashtag.
We do. So on that note, now we can finally say until next time, because this was Halloween night.
Reader beware.
You're in for a scare.